Welcome to the channel. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Join me on today's video where we will be reviewing the SteelDive SD1977. So this was unboxed on the channel a few days ago, and today I'll be going through the full review. So we're going to start off with dimensions, specifications, price, etc., and go through all the smaller details that you get on this watch. Now this watch is homaging the Seiko 6105-8000 watch series. Now, it's not as well known as the younger brother, which is the 6105-8110, or the nicknamed Captain Willard. This is the one that came just before it, so it hasn't gained the same popularity, and that of course comes across in the Homage world as well from AliExpress, that I think there is only one real competitor to this, which is the rectangular, the Redune, and I did review that last year sometime, and that is a very incredible looking watch. But SteelDive gives you still quite a lot to consider for the very appealing price of around £95 or around $130. So very competitive on the prices, and as we know, SteelDive can give some of the best value for money watches. Just have a look at the SD1970. So let's start off with some specifications and then dimensions. You do have a full 316L stainless steel construction on the case, the bezel, the bracelet, crown and case back. You also have an alleged 200 meters of water resistance, which is aided by a screw down crown and a screw down case back. The watch has a flat chamfered, slightly air coated sapphire crystal. Also has a black ceramic bezel insert with a 120 click unidirectional bezel, and the movement powering this watch is the Seiko NH35 with a date function, which does hack and wind, and it beats at around 6 ticks a second. Now moving on to dimensions, I will give you full and thorough dimensions this time. So you do have a diameter of 42 millimeters. The bezel diameter is around 40 millimeters. The thickness of the watch is 13.5 millimeters with a 48 millimeter lug to lug. Now, with the addition of the male end links, that does bring it up to around 53.5 millimeters. But as you'll see later on when you do the wrist shot, that the ends are slightly curved, so it doesn't weigh like a 53 mil, and it weighs closer to the actual lug to lug of 48 millimeters. The crown is coming in at 6.7 millimeters. You have a overall weight of 180 grams. The bracelet lug width is 20 millimeters. The bracelet does taper down to 18 millimeters with a link thickness of around 3.5 millimeters. Now, looking at the dial, this is the exact same dial used in the Captain Willard 6105 homages, so there's nothing different. You do have a mixture of printed features and applied features. The printing is done at a very reasonable level. While I say this is a very plain dial, the printing and the application of the hour markers is still exceptional. It is a very good dial, although rather plain. And in this case, you know, unimaginative, they've stuck with something they had in the 6105 Captain Willard as well. However, I think the 8000, in all fairness, came with the same dial, but I could be wrong. You've got a printed minute track on the dial, printed logo below the 12, and some printed text above the 6, which is basically the water resistance rating. So you do have a silver date frame applied with some nice detailing, including a chamfered and polished frame. The hour markers also have polished frames. They are applied very thick. You've got a dual baton at the 12, singular baton at the 6 and the 9, and slightly more square hour markers in and around that. Now the rehaut area is silver and it's brushed. Now, due to the sapphire crystal having this chamfer around the edge, you do get the appearance of a chapter ring. So you do have a nice coinage bezel, fully brushed, great grip on there. Even the lip around there is brushed. Let's check the rotation. Very precise bezel, 120 clicks, no movement at all, and it lines up perfectly well. Well, I will say the bezel is very audible, and I do tend to prefer bezels that are slightly more fluid and that kind of glide over the mechanism. But this is, yeah, extremely tactile, makes a loud sound. But you know, that's not a bad thing. In fact, on wrist, I'm actually wearing the Zelos, and I found it has a very similar sounding bezel and a very similar action. So quite a loud clicky bezel. There is no play in there. It is consistent and it is quite solid and it lines up perfectly well. Now let's go ahead, let's check out the lume on this watch. SteelDive never disappoint with the lume, so let's see what they've done here. As promised, SteelDive have delivered in the lume department. You've got a use of bicolor lume. So the lume ceramic bezel insert uses BGW9 and the dial uses C3 as well as the hands. Now for some reason the camera isn't cooperating, so it isn't focused very sharply. However, let me describe it to you. So the dial uses C3 on the hour markers and you can see C3 on the hands. Now what you can see also, there's a slight shade difference on the handset, but the way that translates across into real life is it's just slightly duller than the hour markers on the dial. Now we've seen this across a lot of the models. They did make a slight change to the handsets to make them slightly more cost effective and a little bit cheaper, but yeah, but still it doesn't take anything away from the lume. I've not applied any direct UV. This is just from the LED lights in the room, and SteelDive have always been known to give out extremely great lume dials, especially on these dive watches that are Homage and Seikos. I have no complaints in that department. Now when we look at the case used on this watch, it is a very basic case, so there's not a lot of defining features present. However, what you do get is a very nice uniform look. The case has been brushed in a circular fashion and you can see that's present across there. Now moving along to the sides, you'll see a highly polished side profile. It has drilled end lugs. Same across the side, really good uniform finishing, and the brushing has been done to a very decent level as well. Not the finest that I have seen, but price considering, it is still a good level. Signed case back, polished with SteelDive's logo and relevant specifications. The crown is also signed. As mentioned, it's around 6.5 millimeters, so really good grip. I do like how it fits snugly into the side of the case, giving you that protection, and fairly decent mechanism. Works just fine, and it screws down again. No grittiness. Signage present on the crown. Moving over to the bracelet, you've got a solid end link bracelet with all solid links. As mentioned earlier, it is 20 millimeters in width and it tapers down to 18 millimeters. The brushing has been done to a really good level, so all evenly brushed. The sides are polished. You do have split pins that hold the bracelet together. Now the only issue with the bracelets at this price point, they're not overly refined. They do jangle slightly, but they've done the best they can. Looking at the fit on the end links, I think that is a really good fit. There's no gaps there, no wobble, no movement, very solid. And that is a notable improvement that I've seen on SteelDives since the last time I checked out their watches. Now you can see at the back, they have upgraded the spring bars. These are slightly thicker, and that explains why the end links fit so well. SteelDive have stuck with the old design of a stamped clasp, and you do have some signage present on the top. SteelDive, I think, do provide a milled clasp option. I did see one of the listings providing that, but the clasps you can get, they are quite cheap on AliExpress, and they have also gone away from the replacements for these and gone for slightly better formed clasps, and I'm even sure you can get a clasp similar to a San Martin. Now the bracelet overall quality, I'd say it's good. It is quite edgy, and bringing back the price into the question, for £90, you will enjoy wearing it. I don't think this will cause you any problems, but I will place this on a tropical strap just to see how that wears. So let's put this on wrist and see how this watch sits. So here's a SteelDive on my 6.5 inch wrist. As mentioned about the lug to lug and the male end links, they don't really impact it wearing on your wrist. The male end links do slightly curve down, so that helps. Good presence on the wrist, coming at 42 millimeters, and I do really like this cushion case. I like the profile, and yeah, I think it looks quite good. Let's change the strap and let's put it on something just a little bit more comfortable. So I've put it on a waffle strap, and to me they look just a bit more natural on these kind of straps, and they are very comfortable. And when you put it on a strap, it does improve that wearability slightly because you've got rid of those end links. But overall, a very good watch, good fit as well. Now to summarize, I think SteelDive have done really well with this SD1977. A very simple watch, a great homage, great lume, a very nicely made case, great finishing on there as well, and the fact that they've gone for drilled lugs as well to give you some practicality out of it. A very accurate bezel, although I'm not a fan of the sound, but it works. Can't really complain too much. Screwdown crown, allegedly 200 meters of water resistance, and at $130, this is very tough competition. Pagani Design sell you watches at this price point, but the Lume is utter nonsense, and the bezel isn't that great for the most part. And this is where SteelDive does kind of trump a lot of other watches that it does compete against in the same category. Now, like I said, the only other alternative available is the Redune 6105-8000. Incredible looking watch, but that is also around £140 and closer to the $180 mark. So again, going back to the SteelDive, really good value for money watch. And if you do like this cushion case and you like the size, etc., and the visuals, then this is definitely one to go for. You will not be disappointed. In terms of QC and consistency, I haven't seen anything wrong with this one. That's the only one I can comment on. I know in the past SteelDive were notorious for really poor QC, but I know they have fixed that, and they are a lot better at it these days. So that's it for this review. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.